Hi friends, it's Joy. Thank you for joining me this week. This week's session I am calling Dream Session because I actually came up with this sequence during a dream. So I had to wake up and write it down really quick so I wouldn't forget. It's a smooth flowing sequence, and I want us to pretend that we are, not pretend, I want us to be fluid in this movement, flow like water, finding the softness in the edges. And that's what we're going to focus on today. Let's go ahead and sit on a block. Get settled in. Bring our hands to heart center. And we'll take a few conscious breaths, making sure that your exhalations are longer than the inhalations. And as we settle in here, this is a perfect time to set your intention for your practice and get into the present moment. Make sure that your sit bones are pressing into the block or the mat, lengthening through the spine, crown of the head reaching to the sky, and shoulders are slightly up and back. Kind of creating a smile here in your collarbone. Couple more breaths here. Keeping your eyes closed or heavy. Your next inhale, let's go ahead and flutter open our eyes. Remove, actually we won't remove the block yet. We're going to take our hands in heart center, and we're going to bring our hands down and we're going to extend them out and reach them up towards the sky, but create resistance as if you were moving your hands through honey. So creating a little bit of resistance there. As your hands meet above your head, pressing one hand into each other or into another. Coming down to heart center, creating some resistance. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Do this one more time. Reaching those fingers out as we come up. Go ahead and flutter our eyes open, and let's remove whatever we are sitting on, and we'll come into tabletop. And we're going to do a few wrist openers and wrist warm-up. Make sure that your shoulders are over the wrists and your hips are over your knees, keeping your toes tucked. We're going to go ahead and start to make small clockwise circles. Make sure that you're gripping your fingers into the mat and you're not dumping all the weight just into the wrist. I did a sequence the other day with my instructor, and it was a lot of wrist poses and strength poses, and I put a little bit too much weight into my wrists. So I want to make sure that I warm up my wrists every time I do this. Go ahead and switch to the other side, going counterclockwise. Remember to breathe here. right, now let's go ahead and come into neutral. And from here, we're going to go ahead and rotate externally our hands all the way around until our fingers are facing our knees. Now, some of you might be able to feel it just right here. Just make sure that you keep your wrist still underneath your shoulders. And you want to make sure that your arms are strong and you're not bending in. On your next inhale, let's go ahead and start to lift the palms of the hands off of the mat. Now from here, you can start to make small circles with your thumbs. If you can't make circles, you can just go ahead and wiggle them around, just creating some new movement in your hands. A lot of us are really tight in this area because we're always driving, playing on the computer, or on our handheld devices. Remember to breathe when it gets intense. Holding your breath makes it harder to do these poses and actually causes more stress in the body. On your next inhale, let's go ahead and raise even higher and just keep the fingertips on the mat. This one's intense, huh? On your next exhale, make sure that your toes are tucked because we're going to sit all the way back and bring our hips to our heels as we raise our arms, bending at the elbows, keeping our hands by our face, and we're going to open and close our hands. Just the hands. Well, I guess that's all you could do. And go ahead and make some circles just at the wrist. Getting a little bit of a toe sit here too, and opening in the bottoms of our feet. Stretching out the muscles in our feet. Go ahead and come into tabletop again. What we're going to do is we're going to flip our hands over so that the tops of our hands are going to be down on the mat. Now this one's going to be intense, especially in the forearms. Make sure that your shoulders are over your wrists. Keep your arms nice and strong. Don't bend at the elbows. Some of you can feel it just right here. And you can stay right here. But if you want to give yourself a little bit more of a stretch, you can start to move the hips back towards the heels. Can you feel that? I love these exercises. These mobility exercises really help prevent. It's a nice prevention for carpal tunnel. Breathe here. That was nice. On your next exhale, let's go ahead and sit back again, slowly bringing the hands back and bending at the elbows, and again, just opening and closing and kind of shaking it out. Coming back into tabletop, we're going to go ahead and do cat and cow. So on an inhale, we're going to bring the chest through as the tummy reaches down towards the mat, as the hips or the sit bones reach up to the sky, and your throat and your gaze are up. Exhale, starting at the tailbone to tuck the tailbone in as you push the ground away. Shoulders reaching up to the sky as you tuck your chin to your chest. Now let's do this 3 more times on our own breath, starting at the hips. Exhale, pushing that ground away. And you can energetically act as if you were pushing your hands and your knees apart. And then on inhale, you can even bend your elbows here and make an exaggerated cow movement and energetically draw the hands towards the knees as the gaze is up. Exhale. One more time. Into cow. And exhale into neutral. From here, we're going to go into our first downward facing dog, tucking the toes, sending the hips up and back. On an inhale, we're going to get into your first downward facing dog today. So pedal out your feet, lift your hands. Remember to grip the mat with all 10 fingers. And stay in down dog. I'm going to tuck in my shirt before it comes all the way up. Make sure that the ears are alongside the biceps and vice versa. You can come up to your tippy toes and send your heels over to the right. Feel the stretch that way. Come back up to your tippy toes and send the heels over to the left. And then let's go ahead and settle in the downward dog for a couple of breaths. Okay, this isn't working with my shirt. Again. On an inhale, we're going to come up to our tippy toes and we're going to wave our body forward into plank pose. Making sure you might have to shift a little bit here. Making sure that you're pressing the heels back to that imaginary wall behind you, tucking the tummy in and pushing that ground away. Gaze is down towards the mat. Next, exhale, we're going to bend our knees and send our hips up and back into downward facing dog. Inhale, coming to the toes and coming forward again into plank. We're not going to stay here. Exhale, bending the knees, bringing the hips up into downward facing dog. On an inhale, lifting the right leg, keeping the hips square. We're in tripod dog here. And on your next exhale, we're going to step that right foot in between the hands. And we're going to drop that back knee to the mat. And we're going to come into a low lunge, lifting the torso up, hands reaching towards the sky. Taking a couple of breaths here. Making sure that you're pulling back on the right hip crease and pulling forward on the left hip crease, keeping the hips square. On your next exhale, go ahead and plant the hands and take a big step forward, meeting the left foot meeting the right foot. And we're going to take a seat and we're going to come into chair pose. Breathe here. Making sure that the two big toes are touching and the heels are slightly apart. As if you look down, and when you look down, you can actually see your toes, keeping the spine lengthened. On your next exhale, let's go ahead and plant the hands, and we're going to step that left foot back, keeping the toes tucked. And on an inhale, we're going to raise the body into crescent lunge. Again, we're pulling back on the right hip crease, pulling forward on the left hip crease. Keeping the spine lengthened and the ribs knit together so we're not overextending the low back. On your next exhale, go ahead and drop that left heel to the mat at a 45-degree angle. And we are going to open up into, warrior two. And if you need to adjust your feet to get into your warrior, you can do that as well. Remember, we want to keep it soft here. On your next inhale, we're going to go ahead and reverse the warrior, bringing the right arm up above and rainbowing it over as we place our left hand on our calf. On your next exhale, let's go ahead and plant the hands down as we walk them in front of us. We're going to go ahead and take a wide leg forward fold. This is really nice. Keeping the torso really heavy and the neck and the head, just let it dangle. And let the stress go here. You can keep your hands in front of you to keep your balance. Or if you'd like, you can bring your hands behind you and get a deeper stretch. From here, let's go ahead and plant our hands. Do a halfway lift. Let's go ahead and fold one more time. Maybe you can feel it more on the inner part of the thighs. Inhale, plant the hands. And we're going to walk the hands over to the left foot as we pivot our toes around. And we are going to come back into our downward facing dog on this side. Taking a few breaths here. On your next inhale, come into tripod dog. And exhale, stepping that left foot through, dropping the right knee as we come into a low lunge, lifting the torso, keeping the ribs knit together so that we don't overextend the low back. Pulling back on the left hip crease as we pull forward on the right hip crease. Breathe here. On your next exhale, let's plant the hands, lifting that back knee and taking a big step forward as our right foot meets the left foot. Make sure that your big toes are touching and you have a slight space in between your heels as we take a seat and come into chair. From here, we're going to bend forward, planting our hands, stepping that right foot back. On a big inhale, we are going to come up into crescent lunge, keeping the back toes tucked, pulling forward on the right hip crease, pulling back on the left hip crease. Settling in here, making sure we're lengthening the spine. Fingers reaching up to the sky. On your next inhale, dropping that right foot, right heel to the mat in a 45-degree angle, we're going to open up into Warrior Two and settle into your warrior here. We want to keep it soft and flow like water here. Reaching the fingertips out, making sure that your shoulder blades are coming together on your back. Next inhale, let's go ahead and reverse the warrior. Creating length here, keeping your shoulders away from your ears. Next exhale, we're going to come down, planting the hands, and we're going to walk the hands in front of us as we pivot the left foot in. So you want your heels slightly out as we do a forward fold. So toes slightly in, heels slightly out. And letting the torso hang here. You can shake the head yes, shake the head no to make sure that you're not keeping any tension there. Move the arms around. Long, steady breaths here. On an inhale, planting the hands, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Making sure that the weight of your body is on the pinky edges of your feet. Lifting the arch. On your next inhale, we're going to plant the hands and we're going to walk our hands to the top of the mat again. And we are going to bring that right foot back into downward facing dog. Inhale, come into tripod dog. And on an exhale, we're going to come through into, it's similar to a pigeon pose, but we're going to do a sleeping swan instead. So what we're going to do is you're going to keep the right shin parallel to the top of the mat. You're going to bring the weight onto the right side, and you're going to bend your left knee slightly. And as you lengthen the spine here, we're going to go ahead and come down. Now, if you can't come all the way down to the mat, you can place your forearms here and let the head hang. You can even place a block right here and rest your forehead on a block. Or if you'd like, you can come all the way down and create a little pillow for your hands. I'm just going to put my forehead on the mat. Watching your breath here. Making sure that you're not holding any tension anywhere. Check your jaw. Sometimes you can, in this pose, you can clench your jaw. Make sure that you're releasing that. You can make some audible exhales here as well to help the body settle in. Gives that signal to the brain that everything's okay. Now from here, let's go ahead and inhale and pressing our hands into the mat. We're going to come back up to seated. Placing the weight into the hands. We're going to push ourselves back up. And we're going to come back into downward facing dog and do the other side. So inhale, lifting the left leg up. Exhale, bringing that right shin parallel or slightly, doesn't have to be all the way parallel to the mat. Coming into our sleeping swan as we put the weight into the left hip as we bend the right knee. Inhale, lengthening the spine and coming into settle, wherever is comfortable for you. This feels so nice and relaxing. One more inhale. Exhale and sigh out the mouth. As we inhale, planting the hands, let's go ahead and bring that right leg forward and let's go ahead and lay on our backs. We're going to do bridge pose here. Make sure that my clippies will allow that, which they're not going to. Okay, do some adjustments. Make sure that your feet are flat on the floor. And when we come into bridge, you want to make sure that your knees don't splay out. You want to keep them pulling in towards each other. When they splay out, you're putting more pressure on the glute muscles. So make sure that your knees are bent and your fingers can slightly graze the back of your heels, keeping the neck lengthened here. So even still, you want to pretend like you have like an orange or a little ball here between your neck and your chest and your chin. On an inhale, you're going to start to press the feet into the mat and your hips will you'll start to lift off the mat. And we're going to come onto our shoulder blades here. And if you want to extend it even a little bit further, you can bring the shoulder blades together and grab your hands, interlace your hands. Breathe here. Heart openers are challenging poses because we don't often stretch our back in this position. On your next exhale, let's go ahead and move the shoulders slightly out as we unclasp our hands and bring our hips down one vertebra at a time. Settling here. I'm going to do this pose one more time. Inhale, pressing the heels into the mat so much that the hips start to rise, bringing the shoulder blades together on the back, keeping the neck and head lengthened, grabbing and interlacing the fingers, making sure that your knees are not splaying outward, that you're keeping your knees closer together. And breathe. Last inhale. Exhale. Start to bring the body back to the mat. From here, we're going to move into Happy Baby. So bringing the knees up, and we're going to reach our hands in between our knees as we grab the outside of our feet. Then we are going to extend our feet, or the heels of the feet, up to the sky as we pull back with our hands on our toes or our feet, creating some resistance here. Some of you will start to shake right away. I'm starting to shake right away. Some of you can just take a regular baby here, where you can just let the weight of the body bring you into this pose. I'm shaking a lot on the right side. And if you want a little bit more engagement, you can put the low back, glue the low back or the sacrum to the mat. That'll intensify the the pose. As you can see, I'm shaking quite a bit. I'm laughing because I'm shaking. I had a really intense session night before last, and I'm feeling it today. On an exhale, let's go ahead and bring the legs back down, releasing the feet, dropping the feet to the mat, and let's go ahead and extend the legs out, and we'll come into our Shavasana, the end of our practice. What is your breath like? Is it slow and steady? Is your heart racing a little bit? Focus on relaxing into this pose. Be mindful of your breath. And we'll stay here for a couple of minutes. Let's go ahead and start to wiggle our fingers and our toes, keeping our eyes closed, coming back into the present moment. Bending the knees and bringing them in towards your chest as we hug our knees, bringing our head, our forehead to our knees. Maybe taking a few movements here, rolling over to one side or the other. I always have to shift here, staying in fetal position for a moment. Using that top arm, top hand to press into the mat as we come back to seated. You can replace the block if you'd like, or you can just come back to a nice, easy seated position, lengthening lengthening the spine, sit bones into the mat, fluttering the eyes open. I hope you enjoyed this dream sequence. I thought it was nice, cute, and fun. And if you like these videos, please give me a thumbs up. Leave me some comments down below. Also, if you are interested, please help me get this video out there and boost up my algorithm, and leave me some comments and share it along as well. And if you'd like to keep me awake while I do these videos and come up with my sequences, please, I have a link down below where you can buy me a cup of coffee. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Thanks for joining me this week. Go ahead and hands to heart center. Bring the thumbs to the third eye and bow forward and seal our practice by saying Namaste. Thanks again, guys. I'll see you next week. Take care.